We got a huge surprise recently from Jason Blundell. As most people know, it was announced that he left Treyarch during the Black Ops 4 cycle and then resurfaced as the head of a new gaming studio called Deviation Games. Deviation Games was working on an exclusive game for Sony for a few years, and then last September of 2022 they announced that Jason had left Deviation Studios. Shortly after that, in February of 2023, Deviation Games laid off 90% of their employees, and it seems like the game they were working on got canceled. I was personally really bummed out about this news. I was looking forward to playing this game and covering it, knowing that Jason was behind it. A lot of us have been wondering, where's Jason? Is he going to resurface again somewhere? And recently he did, in a really big way. Last week, JC Backfire, who worked at Deviation Games with Jason, hosted a 3-hour live stream where Jason was a surprise guest. This was incredible to see, and Jason hung out in the live stream for almost 3 full hours. And this is unheard of for Jason. He stays very underground and out of the public eye and has 0 social media accounts. In this live stream, we got to witness a side of Jason that we've never known or seen. He spoke about his childhood extensively, where he grew up, what it was like, and the road he went down with his jobs and education to get to the position that he had at Treyarch and other gaming studios. I'll go over some of the highlights of this stream and talk about some of the really interesting things he said. Some of the big questions I had about this stream were, did he talk about Deviation Games and what happened there? Did he talk about zombies? And did he mention anything about what he could be working on now? And he did talk a little bit about some of that, but some he absolutely did not mention, and I'll briefly go over that. I would highly recommend that all you guys go check out this full video. It's on JC's YouTube. It was super informative and hilarious. Jason and JC played some retro Sega games, and Jason actually beat JC in some of them. But Jason starts off by saying he's from Warrington, UK, and he kind of described himself as a loner as a kid and spent a lot of time in the library reading. When he was about 10 years old, he would go and stay at his uncle's place a lot, and his uncle was into computer programming, and this piqued Jason's interest. But he was so young, his family said he couldn't do it because of his age. This just made him want to do it more and prove his family wrong. He said he's the type of person that if you tell him he can't do something, then that's exactly what he's going to do, and he's going to do it really well. And that was pretty much the beginning of what drove the rest of his career. He said in his teens he took an aptitude test to find out what kind of career path he should go down, and they were trying to direct him to be an electrician. But he said he refused all of that advice because he was heavily driven towards computer programming, and he felt like that was the way that he could express himself. One of his first jobs in the gaming industry was when he was 15 years old. He worked for a British video game developer and publisher called Psygnosis, and he helped to design and build models for them. A couple of other really interesting jobs that he had early on that were in the gaming industry were that he worked for Sony as a playtester, and he playtested a 1997 PlayStation game called Parappa the Rappa. Around that same time, he also playtested another game for Sony that released on PlayStation called G-Police. And all the games he was playing and playtesting when he was really young were developed in Japan. So he was planning to move to Japan and work in the gaming industry there. He even prepared himself and learned Japanese. And then he found out that the US was actually creating and developing games as well. So he kind of changed his mind and went that direction. JC asked him what was one of the first games he played that really inspired him, and he said it was a game called Elite, and that he was super fascinated by this game, and it really helped to drive his desire even more for computer programming and gaming. Elite is a space trading video game, and it was released in 1984, and he played it on an MSX computer. It was really cool to hear about his passion and drive behind like computer programming and gaming. Like, this guy is totally geeked out on this stuff. He spoke about another interest that he had that was his first passion above everything else, and that's playing role-playing tabletop games with miniatures. Like, he loves painting miniatures for those games. He spoke about another game that he was a big part of and a producer on, and this was in 2006. It was a game called Warhammer Glory and Death. This game was developed for a device called the N-Gage that was created by Nokia, and this N-Gage is like a smartphone combining features of a mobile phone and a handheld game system. Another game he was a part of early on that he mentioned was a PlayStation 2 game from 2004. It was called Catwoman, and he's the guy that programmed the whip that she uses. He said that him and his coworkers had a lot of inside jokes about this whip that he designed for the game. He said he was in the British programming gaming scene for about 20 years before he came over to the US, and that his MO the entire time was that he wanted to make games and tell stories that people fell in love with. And he absolutely nailed that with zombies. You can see, like, we are all super fans and so obsessed with what he's created. So back to the hard questions. Did he talk about Deviation Games and why he left and why they laid off so many employees? And the answer is no, nothing was said at all, which is expected. I wouldn't think he would come on to JC's stream and be like, yeah, let me just tell you all the inside scoop. Like, that's not gonna happen. And yeah, it's understandable. It also seemed like him and JC had this understanding that they were not going to talk about zombies or answer any questions in the chat about zombies. You could tell that was being avoided. But he did make one really funny reference to zombies, and I like busted out laughing. And it's the part where JC asked him about some of the cartoons he watched as a kid and what were his favorite ones.
What's cartoons? Like, what are like the cartoons that you watch? Like, what are the things that you watch?
Okay, now here we go. let's start. First off, so an animation house that was in Manchester again. So
I can go full screen really fast.
And it was Danger Mouse, and it was Cosgrove and Hall, the two guys. Danger Mouse, Count Duckula, with the kind of two kind of cartoons that I just religiously loved. Then there was the Cities of Gold. Cities of Gold, which please look up, and that went on forever. That just went on forever, and so I just watched it. It was a story that just went on forever, and I'd have to go home every day to watch the City of Gold. Please let them find the City of Gold. Like, when will this stop? So just to let you guys know, I've suffered a very long story as well.
Wow!
Yeah, that was absolutely hilarious. Like, I can't believe he said that, but I guess he's pretty self-aware. Then JC read out a comment where someone said something so nice. They were like, I hope whatever you're working on right now is making you happy. And you can see the big grin on his face. So hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully we'll see something from him eventually. There was also another really funny comment about the fog rolling in meme. I'll let you listen to that.
Whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy with it. Oh, so as you you get the fog rolling in. You can't escape it.
It's going to stay with me for a while, I think. Yeah.
JC said he wanted to have him back in the stream to talk about more stuff, and so that's a real possibility that he might be making another surprise visit. So definitely follow JC on his Twitch. At the very end, Jason said he will be back, like referencing Arnold Schwarzenegger from The Terminator. And whether that means he's going to be back to JC's stream or just back in the gaming industry, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But please go check out the full video. If you guys are Jason fans, you're going to love this. This is just incredible to get this side of him. And I'll have that video linked down in the description. And again, please go check out JC on Twitch.